I'm Jay Taylor, the editor of a newsletter called Jay Taylor's Gold, Energy, and Tech Stocks. And I'm here with Ben Slager. He is the CEO of Alliance Bioenergy Plus. It's a company that I've started following in my newsletter. You know, I've mostly really involved almost entirely with the red hot junior exploration gold and silver markets. But now and then I find some technology stocks, especially in the energy or in areas in life that we really have to, that we really need to enhance our lives. And this is a company, Alliance Bioenergy Plus, that I think has a really interesting story and one that needs to be told. So I've taken a break away from my gold and silver exploration stories to try to get more people to take a look at this company. It's a company that can take any kind of cellulosic material and create energy, create fuel oils, a fuel from this material, and do it very inexpensively, I believe. It's a company that is now ramping up its production, its scale, and one that is, I think, offering a great deal of promise, not only in energy, but can also provide some environmentally friendly plastics as well. And I'm really pleased that Ben is here to tell the story today, to let more of you know about this company that I think is really flying under the radar screen. It's trades in the United States under the symbol ALLM, 235 million shares outstanding, thereabouts, trading between 7 and 10 cents recently. So it has a market cap of under $20 million US, or around 20 million, let's say, in US money. Ben, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, Jay, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, let me give you a short introduction about Alliance Bioenergy Plus.
Yeah, and if you could, Ben, just give us a little background about yourself as well, what you've done. You're an entrepreneur, you've been involved in building companies before, so maybe you can give a little background for our viewers about yourself and then about the company.
Absolutely. Well, regarding myself, you know, I'm Dutch. I'm here in the US since 8 years. So I grew up in the Netherlands. I studied in the Netherlands, and I had my whole professional career in the Netherlands and Europe, basically. So I worked a couple of years with several companies, and then I started my own company in assembling chips for chip cards. That went very successful. I started that company around age of 30, and I stick with the company for 10 years. We grew it up to about 80 million revenues per year. What we did is we produced chips for smart cards, is the bank cards. If you see the yellow small square in your card, that's what the company made. The company is still going very well. We expanded that to all kinds of identification, contact identification in cards, contactless identification. And after 10 years, it was more of the same, and I decided the company is well going forward, and I decided to do something new. And I got involved with an idea where we could make very strong fibers. So we patented it, and we went through this whole same process as we did with the other company. Proof of concept, proof of production, proof of market. And basically what we did there is we had a fiber which was 8 times stronger than steel, which was used mainly in ballistic applications and protection applications. So we went through that whole process, and after a while, when that was done, we were able to sell it to a large Japanese multinational. And then I started another company in solar, so in energy, green energy. We invented a method to decrease the reflection of a solar panel. You see solar panels, they're always shiny, which is not good because that's reflecting light and you want the light to be absorbed. So we're able to come up with a solution for that, reducing the reflection with about 95 to 99%, increasing the yield of the panels with about 15%. Which was enormously. So we did the whole same process with that company. We developed it until it was ready for mass production, and we sold it to a large Dutch multinational. In the meantime, I've been supporting some other companies parallel as board member and other supporting functions. Then after that, I ended up in the USA. And after a couple of years taking off for my family, I got in touch with Alliance and I was invited to join the board. And I did, because I had nothing around to do at that moment. And I had experience of developing companies for 20 years, over 20 years. And I thought I was of a good help. And what I looked or what I saw is that we had a very nice technology as Alliance. The chemistry was wonderful. The reactor was not efficient enough. So I dug into that. I invented a new type of reactor. We developed it, and which we are good on our way now. And unfortunately, the management wasn't able to run the company as it should have been run. So we had to separate from the management, and we had to clean up the company financially. It was in severe debt, and it was unattractive for investors to invest with a lot of debt due, because they will see their money goes to debts instead of the development of the company. So together with my co-board member, Anthony Santelli, who's CFO, we decided to go for a Chapter 11, reorganize the company completely, got rid of all the debt due, and came out with a complete clean balance sheet, while we left all the shareholders whole. So every shareholder still has his shares and has a chance to earn back his investment money. So basically that was by the end of last year. Which meant that at that moment we're a clean startup to go forward. We have developed our machine, our reactor, to fourth prototype, which we recently run very successful. So successful that we decided to further upgrade it, which is in process now. But basically we're now at a point where we say, hey, we need to accelerate with the company because we have a wonderful market in front of us. So that's basically in a nutshell where I come from, what my background is. So I have experience in technology companies, developing it from inception to market position.
And developing those technologies and improving on some deficiencies, as I hear your story.
Absolutely.
And so you've picked up and are doing the same thing with Alliance Bioenergy. Now, so walk us through a little bit the story. You can take any kind of cellulosic material, as I understand it, and create sugar, and then from there into fuel, I guess, right?
Yeah, that is correct. So basically, Jay, there is a pretty big market for ethanol. That ethanol is made from corn. That was, of course, a hot development in the last couple of years. But now we see that the whole government and the whole public opinion wants to go away from food for fuel. So we developed this process, which I think is very, very efficient. To give you one example, apart from the process itself, if we look at corn, you're looking at around 600 gallons per acre per year of ethanol coming from the crop. Mm-hmm. If we look at one of our feedstocks being kinggrass, which we would grow here in Florida, you're looking at 3,000 gallons per acre per year. So that's a factor of 5 higher. Apart from that, our process is mechanical. It works very, very efficient with relatively very low energy consumption. And the interesting thing is we break down the cellulosic material in basically 2 products. That is, 1, the sugar stream, and 2, it's a lignin stream. Mm-hmm. That sugar stream is then qualified as cellulosic sugar from a cellulosic source. And that sugar is basically the same as in any ethanol process. From there on, it's a basic standard process. We will ferment that into ethanol, and that ethanol can be used in several applications. It can be mixed into the fuel. We can convert it. We have a technology licensed in. We can convert it to biodiesel and biojet fuel. And the lignin part is basically a free byproduct. Now, lignin is basically the material in which holds the plant together. We have industries where a lot of lignin is available. However, that lignin is contaminated and chemically modified. The beauty of our lignin is clean and unmodified, so it's very low cost to use that for bioplastics. And it would result into a plastic which is bio-originated and biodegradable. We can even tune the degradability from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, depending on the application. We see there's a huge market for that as well. If you look at utensils, straws, 400 million straws per day in the US alone. So if those will all not end up in the ocean, you know, and if they would, and they would just digest, that would be a super advantage. And why do we see that our product is good? Because it's low cost and we can tune the degradability from our product. If we look at the ethanol, there is a big premium on that from the EPA. It's about $1.70 per gallon. That's on top of the intrinsic margin which we make with our process and the feedstock. I mentioned kinggrass as a feedstock. We can virtually work with any cellulosic feedstock, as you said before. It can be from forest waste, yard waste. It can be other agricultural waste. It can also be the cellulosic part of municipal solid waste. We have tested that extensively. Coming up more and more municipal solid waste factories which separate out the fractions in municipal solid waste in glass, metal, oils, but also the cellulosic fraction, mainly coming from the papers and the cartons. That is a very good feedstock. So we could put our process in such a facility, convert that into energy, and that would be basically a feedstock which is for free.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, the garbage problem. I live in New York City, and you know, we see these horror stories of these gigantic barges going across the ocean and dumping this horrible stuff into the ocean. So what you're telling me is that cellulosic material can be used. But I want to ask, in terms of feedstock, might there be? I mean, you're talking about some grass. What do you call it? King grass.
Yeah.
Is there some advantage to that over some of these other feedstocks? And from what you're telling me, you can get 3,000 gallons of ethanol out of an acre using your process, or is it the feedstock that's the important?
It's a combination. It's a combination, Jay. First of all, the feedstock is very dense. It grows very high, and it basically serves no other purpose than being cellulosic material. So compared with corn, we could use the whole corn stock. The corn ethanol just used the corn itself, but we use the plant and everything. Now that's the same with the kinggrass. We use the whole plant. So we use a much bigger part of the crop to start with. And secondly, the conversion rates is very efficient. So that ends up in a much higher yield per acre at the end of the day than corn and other feedstocks.
I'm wondering about the competition. Like, you know, obviously there's an ethanol market now. Somebody's producing that. It's probably politically connected. A lot of these producers from the Midwest or whatever. Do you see this as do you think that your process might be considered a threat to some of those producers, or do you have a cost advantage that could allow you to slip in, at least in a small way, to start with?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, no, that's of course a very good question. The advantage which we see is a fundamental advantage that we don't use food for feedstock to start with. The second thing is, at the end of the day, the cost price of the sugars and later on the ethanol coming out. So that is a very severe advantage where other corn ethanol manufacturers lose money, we make money. And so they will be very interested to either buy our sugars to convert to cellulosic ethanol themselves and keep their whole factory going, because the rest of the process is virtually the same. Or we could team up with them in a kind of a joint venture type of thing. So basically it's a step up in technology. You know, it's basically, if tomorrow I would invent a car driving on water, you know, no matter what the competition says, everybody would want that car. And that's the same with our process. No matter what the competition says, they would want it. So at the other point, yes, of course, for some manufacturers, it would mean a threat because, you know, there is a competition which is better and cheaper. but they can buy that material from us, and they can work with us, and they can acquire that technology. So they can turn that threat into an opportunity for themselves, and not only for themselves, but also for the society and the general fuel market as a whole. Plus, don't forget, it is mandated by the government to make 580 million gallons of cellulosic ethanol this year. That mandate is not met because nobody can produce it.
Okay.
There are some technologies who can, but not at competitive costs. You know, if you can sell it for $1.50 and you have to make it for $3.50, nobody would be interested. But if you can sell it for $1.50 and you make it for less than $1, you know, then it starts to become interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you know, the extra credit you get from the EPA, basically paid by the industry, but mandated by the EPA, and that mandate is growing over the years. That's already projected. So that makes it hugely interesting. Besides that, we have, of course, the lignin part to support the whole process,
Mm-hmm.
and that's basically free feedstock for our plastics, and that will generate a revenue at the same size as the ethanol, if not bigger.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel with the EPA credit, that is the $1.70, I think you said it is that,
Mm-hmm.
could your business fly? Could it be, would you have low enough costs to make the business
Yeah, absolutely.
without
Yep.
the extra $1.70?
Yes, Jay, that is absolutely the case. We project a cost price of a product for below $1. The market price around $1.50 at the moment. And so we would make an intrinsic margin, which we would, just on the ethanol itself, we would make good money. You know, if we add up the plastic part and the lignin part to that, it is going to be phenomenal. You know, and the 170 is just the icing on the cake, which makes it even nicer. This is the low-hanging fruit, and I expect that it's going to be there for the next 3 to 8 years, and then it will go slowly, it will go down. But by that time, we are so much established with both product lines that, you know, we're going to make money no matter what.
Mm-hmm. And so the sugar or the plastics, the fuel or the plastics, which will be the leader? Will the generation of the fuel be first, and then the plastics come later, or how do you see this?
I estimate that the fuels will be slightly ahead, but we try to do the plastics as much as parallel as possible. But I anticipate that the fuel part will go a little bit first, because that's a more established market at the moment. We could just tap in existing channels where ethanol is blended and delivered into the industry. We will just deliver the cellulosic ethanol. But we will aim for the plastics to go as soon as possible in that direction as well.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, is it, you know, straws? Some jurisdictions have outlawed straws, but what I see is the plastic bags. Can you? I mean, the grocery stores here in New York City, for example, are not allowed to use plastic bags. They have to use paper bags. And could your biodegradable plastic bag, could you make a biodegradable plastic bag that could be used in supermarkets?
In principle, we could. That's a little bit more development. Don't forget, a plastic bag is a high-tech product because it's very thin and pretty strong.
Yeah.
If you look at the utensil market, the one-time plate uses, the one-time cup uses, straws, that's all mechanically less straining for the plastic. So that would be products which we would aim for first, you know, because that's basically the low-hanging fruit.
Sure.
And those products are asked for as much, if not more, than plastic bags.
Yeah. So that's sort of blue sky potentially for the future. And what I'd like to ask you is, how soon? Now, your fourth generation machine, I think you're talking about. How close are you to actual commercial production? Do you think?
What we would do, Jay, is we are say rebuilding, retrofitting our fourth generation into, well, 4.5 generation. Then we're going to run longer and higher volume testing. Based on that, we will design and develop basically the 5th generation, where will be semi-production scale, and run with that. But the consequence of that, of course, is that we're going to need a lot more material. We have recently acquired a pretty large field with kinggrass on it, grown kinggrass, which we're going to use for feedstock, 30 acres. That will serve that purpose for the semi-commercial size. And of course, then you need material preparation, and after that, the separation process of the sugar out of the process stream. These things need to be developed too. But I think that if everything goes well, and if we would be funded as we expect to be before the end of the year, I think we need about 12 to 18 months to be commercial, to have a commercial reactor available for the ethanol market. Parallel, we'll start the plastic development to get that going ASAP as well. But that's basically where we are.
So not that far away, actually. And I mean, I'm as an analyst of mining projects, I'm used to having many years before we see the first signs of gold or copper or whatever until production. And what you're telling me is you're not really that far away. It sounds to me like you have a tremendous profit margin potential. What's the size of these markets, and do you have any sort of sense of the dollar values that might be out there for the ethanol? Well, you know how much ethanol is being required by the EPA.
Yeah.
So can you give our viewers some sense of the size of the market potential out there?
Yeah, if we look into the ethanol market itself, that's a market of $15 billion plus. Mm-hmm. If we look into the biodiesel and jet fuel market, that's $50 billion plus. There's no cap for us to produce that as much as our capacity would allow. The plastic market, that's a multi-billion dollar market as well. There's used so much plastic worldwide, it's unimaginable almost. So basically, I don't see the market size for us as any limitation. Our limitation will be in how quickly can we grow, how fast can we ramp up production, how fast can we grow the team, get sufficient people in to get that all done. And that's basically the next step. And the good thing, I've done that a couple times before in my life, from whole development into production. And some of these companies are still very successful going forward. So that's the thing where we need to concentrate on at this moment. So it's more a kind of an operational growth path forward than a conceptual thing.
All right. And just wondering, the king grass thing, I think you said you had 40 acres. Are you going to, I mean, are there farmers? You obviously have to pay the farmers something for that material.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's a choice of where you get your most efficient food source for the sugar, right? For the development of the energy.
Yeah, basically we would start with that as a good start. Here in Florida, we have hundreds of thousands of acres of ex-citrus plantations, which are not used anymore, which are available for growing any other product. If we see what we get out of the kinggrass, what we could offer farmers, that's a lot more attractive than the farmers have now. Either nothing, or they have cattle on it, or it's just land which is not used, which is not very fertile for other things. So that would be a very first and a very good start. And then we can expand into other places with other feedstock as well. Mm-hmm. But it's, logically, we have to do it one step at a time, Jay.
Yeah, exactly. And, but I mean, it's a story that I think I just really wanted people to know more about it, because I think it's a very exciting story. It's a 7-cent stock this morning as we're speaking. And I just think it's something people need to know about. And if they want to learn more, they should go to bluebiofuels.com. That's your website, bluebiofuels.com. I've written an article about it as well. So it's my subscribers, or if people want, they can contact you or my office here in New York, questionsfortaylor@gmail.com. They can send an email for that, and I'll be happy to send along what I've written. But it's a story that I really want to keep up with, because I think the upside is tremendous. If this works and you have a track record, which is also something people should realize, that you have this skill, this talent, this ability, I think, to as an entrepreneur, to build things. So that's obviously, you start with people. If you've got people with track records, that's 90% of the battle, I think. Anything else you'd like to add before we conclude this little discussion?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jay. you're completely right. You know, if you have an empty building without people, nothing will happen. So people are the main driver. The good thing is that we have a good team together. I'm in touch with a couple of very, very impressive industry leaders who want to join us personally in the development of this company as soon as we ramp up with the funding. So that is very good that we are there. Besides that, I think we are now at a crossroad where we're going to accelerate. We have proven the concept. We have seen that by going larger in our prototypes, we get better results. And now it's time to accelerate and raise more capital. The company is relatively pretty cheap at this moment. That's because we have been laying low with the development. Now we're going to go out to the market and show what we have. Mm-hmm. And of course, we came through the whole reorganization process, the Chapter 11, that's all closed. We'll come out with the financials very soon, so everybody can see that. And that's the point where people have the chance still to step in at this level, because I anticipate that we will grow a little bit, if not a little more than a little bit in the near future.
Wonderful. Great, Ben. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to explain this to my viewers. I think it's an exciting story, and I look forward to keeping up with you and Anthony, your CEO, your CFO, to keep up with this story, and maybe we can do an update sometime in the near future as things progress.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Ben. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.